Well, thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Autumn Monahan, and I've served in various communication roles at the City of Issaquah for over a decade, and I'm also a resident of Issaquah. I'm grateful that while we're all staying home and staying healthy, that we have access to technology to connect us in real time. So thanks for being here tonight. We've heard how important it is for us to stay connected, especially to local leadership. So we're testing these virtual meetings with neighborhoods and would love your feedback at the end of this call. I'm thrilled that Mary Lou Pauly is here with us. Mary Lou Pauly is with us today, and I'll turn it over to her here in a few minutes. Whether you've called in or you're joining us by video, we have muted you for now. I'll be serving as your moderator this evening, and we'll pose questions to Mayor Pauly. And we've asked for some questions to be submitted in advance, and we received several, so we'll go over those first. And then if you've joined us via video, you can use the Skype chat feature to submit additional questions, and I'll do my best to track those and pose those questions to Mayor Pauly. We'll also have an opportunity at the end of this meeting for anyone, whether you're on phone or video, to pose some questions in real time as well. And finally, we are recording this meeting so we can share it with your neighbors who couldn't join us tonight. So with that, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Mayor Mary Lou Pauly. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Autumn. And thank you to the Timberlake neighborhood for being our guinea pig on trying to do some online neighborhood meetings. This is usually the time of the year that the invitations start to come in for ice cream socials or spring cleanup days, and I get a chance to go around to neighborhoods and talk to people. And this year is going to be a little bit different. So I thank you for helping us test drive this. I also want to let you know that we have some other city staff on the phone. Joanne Biscara from the mayor's office is here. She's taking some notes for me so that I'll be able to pass on information that you share with me tonight to our city council. It's really important. They are all at another meeting tonight, and so I wasn't able to bring a couple of council members along with me, but they're very interested in hearing what the conversation is like at these meetings, what your questions are, what your concerns are. I also have Thomas Fresh, who is our communications coordinator. He's kind of tagging along to see how these go because we're hoping that we can roll these out to lots of different neighborhoods. It's just another way for us to all get together. It's a really interesting time right now. I don't have to tell you that. The world kind of changed around March 1st this year. We are in the middle of a response to a COVID pandemic, something we have never experienced before, something like this traumatic for people as well. So what I thought I would do at first is maybe share some information. We don't have a local newspaper. There's been a lot going on in the community, and I'm going to spend my first few minutes just telling you what I've been working on with my team since March. So we are following the governor's staying home and staying healthy order that he put out there. And last week, the governor announced that he's going to extend that to the end of May. He also shared some details about how the state could enter into a reopening phase where different business lines, different activities would get to come back with some new guidance on how we will be able to gather together in those circumstances. He had 4 phases. He has a very cautious approach to emerging from this COVID-19 pandemic. And that allows for adjustments of business closures and physical distancing measures while we are still trying to minimize the spread of this disease. Each phase of his plan opens more businesses and more activities. The state has a dashboard where you can see the metrics that the governor is using to decide when he will be able to move us from one phase to the other. And we don't actually have a date on all these phases. We have to get to a certain place in the metrics in order to be able to try something new and see how that affects new cases and all the rest of it. So they're estimating that we may be able to move through phases as fast as 3 weeks, but again, it depends on where the numbers are and how many new cases there are, how's our hospital capacity. There are lots of things that we have to keep track of. So our city is implementing these standards, and we want to ensure that our community is following the orders and that we are addressing our community-specific needs. So the council in recent weeks has been working on things like rental assistance, helping nonprofits in our our neighborhood that work on food security, making sure there are hot meals for those that need them. School district has been a partner in that. Now that the school kids are at home doing remote learning, the school district has still been providing meal service throughout town using school buses and their existing facilities. So we have been focusing as a council on that too, to make sure that people's basic needs of a roof over their head and food are being taken care of. So I'm very committed to getting our community back open at the right time and at the right way. Just a little bit earlier this evening, before my council meeting, I convened our first meeting of the Issaquah Recovery Task Force. I tapped the shoulders of a few of our volunteers in town and asked if they would join me and some of my administrative staff in planning for how we're going to reopen under the governor's plan. So we had our first meeting, got a few ideas thrown out on the imaginary technical whiteboard, which is somebody typing for us so that we could all see it. Anyway, it's a great group of people. I have 11 sitting members. I have 3 alternates serving. Tried to pick from a really broad demographic in town so that we are really covering the needs of everyone. I'm getting a lot of questions about parks lately. You know, what are people allowed to do? What's open? What's closed? There are state parks, there are county parks, and there are city parks. And in our city parks, we have kept things open for walking through the park, for taking your family, your immediate family, those that you're living with in your house, out to play some frisbee or things like that. But we have closed all of our active areas. So our swing sets, our play fields, our basketball courts, swimming pool, skateboard park, they're all closed for now. And we're waiting for some guidance to see what a reopening might look like. The other thing I wanted to talk with you about, and this is probably no surprise because you're hearing it on the news about everywhere, our budget has been hit very, very hard. So last fall, the council approved a budget for the 2020 year. And we have been working to look at revenue projections, and we've estimated that there'll be a $10 million shortfall this year unless the city cuts expenditures. So we have been spending some time with our finance director and our department heads talking about where we can cut. We're taking a phased approach to budget cuts. The council was informed of a first round of budget cuts a few weeks ago. It totaled about $5 million. It is not the entire amount that we need. It ended up meaning that we had to look at things like laying off. We've laid off some folks. We've created furlough days for some folks that are still within our employ. We've been looking at a whole series of things that we could do in order to close that gap. City governments, county governments are not allowed to run a deficit, are not allowed to go into debt. So this is going to be an enormous challenge for us as we respond to this COVID pandemic and as we try and reopen. We're also going to have to deal with the financial outfall from this. So there will be some additional service changes besides what I have just described. But that's sort of a brief little summary. We have been working on communication. Autumn is the head of our communications team. They use social media. They use our website, various means of trying to stay in contact with the neighborhoods and trying to stay in contact with their businesses. So we have a lot of information about COVID on a special COVID webpage on the city's website. A couple of things that the City Council has been doing in town to help during this time is they've issued a moratorium on tenant late fees. They've allocated $100,000 in emergency funding for rental assistance to help those in need. We're working very, very closely with our businesses, providing assistance where we can and encouraging residents to keep their memberships and to order takeout or buy gift cards when possible. Our senior center staff spends time calling those in our senior population to periodically check in and provide support. Our senior center is very, very popular, and now it is not the place to congregate like it used to be. So they're doing phone calls and some check-ins, and they're also providing a hot meal to go once a day. Before COVID-19, our senior center was offering hot lunches 5 days a week. So we're trying to make sure those that need a hot meal are still getting it. And on our webpage, we've created a whole lot of resources for folks to look at and see what is out there to help people, to help their neighbors. So one of the things I'd like to ask too is these are the times the community can help out as well. I've got a lot of calls and emails asking for suggestions of what people can do to volunteer or how they can help their neighbor, and some really amazing stories have come from it. One of the young ladies on my Issaquah Recovery Task Force is Grace, and Grace lives up in the Highlands. She is a second-year university student who, when she was pulled back from her university to her home because of COVID, she created an app that connects seniors and those with needs in the Highlands community with shoppers. And she has 45 people on her team that will go out and shop for seniors or anybody who needs it. I mean, it's amazing. She came up with it. She put the idea in place. It's widely promoted. I think Como, Autumn, am I right? Como picked it up. Somebody picked up the story to talk about her. She's an amazing young lady, and we have tons of people like that. So we have a couple of things going on. The Food and Clothing Bank down in Old Town is not collecting drop-off donations right now, but you can help provide food by having items shipped directly to the Issaquah Food and Clothing Bank, and they have an emergency needs list that they have on their food bank website at issaquahfoodbank.org. They've seen a big uptick in uses. They've had to retool their entire operation to take into account social and physical distancing. They've done a really good job. But the need is growing. And it's not surprising when you have unemployment rates that are going to be somewhere between 10 and 20% to think that your community isn't going to need help. We have a lot of people that need help. Also, in your own neighborhoods, please check in on your neighbors. You know your neighbors really well. You know who might need a little extra help with food or resources, or even they might need you to help with their yard work. And for all of us who do have needs in our pantries, please be sensitive to not overshop. There was a big overshopping that happened at the beginning of this that made it really hard for us to be able to get resources into Eastside Baby Corner and the Food and Clothing Bank and other food security distributors in town. So make sure that we're buying what we need, but we're not buying too much. And those were just a couple of the suggestions that we had heard. Adam, I wonder if at this moment in time we would be able to have those that are on the call with us identify themselves and talk a little bit about themselves.
Sure, let me unmute everyone.
Thank you. Can you either list the name or the last 4 digits of the phone number, Autumn, so they'll know who? Great.
So to start,
I'm Fred Melgard and Robin Moore. I'm 24 some years in the neighborhood, so I feel like I'm getting to be one of the old congregants. Greatly appreciate this opportunity. You know, this is fun. Great opportunity to get involved in city government and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. It's really nice to have you.
All right, next is someone just with the letter C. And if you're joining us by phone, looks like you may be, you can hit *6 or unmute too on your phone. Nope, probably doesn't want to. Okay. Next, Michelle.
And in case anybody's worried, we've had a lot of fun ourselves not being able to get off mute, so it's not a big deal if you can't introduce yourself. I have been on every single meeting platform you can possibly imagine, and so it's always funny. So no worries if you can't chime in. And I think, Autumn, our last guest is Weber?
Yes.
Okay. And it may even be that they're trying to, but it's just not. It's not working.
Might be. Well, we can continue on. We have received several questions from your neighborhood that we wanted to cover tonight. So, Mayor Pauly, are you ready?
I am,
All
thanks.
right, great. So the first one, our main road into Timberlake Lane is down a steep hill with no houses on it. There is a sidewalk that the school kids use to get to the bus stop at the top of the hill, and neighbors use to walk out of the neighborhood. Is it the city of Issaquah's responsibility to maintain the sidewalk? It is overgrown with moss, making it very slippery in wet weather. Since no houses are nearby, we can't attach a hose and pressure wash it. Yesterday I saw a city van with a pressure washer unit washing the speed limit and block watch signs coming down the hill. Can they be sent out to do the sidewalk a couple times a year?
Okay, that's a great question. It's also a tough one. Property owners are responsible for maintaining the sidewalks that abut their property, which means any side of their property. So while nobody is able to get a hose out there, they are responsible for maintaining that portion of the sidewalk according to our code. I think what we can do, Autumn, with this one is we may need to come back and talk with the neighborhood about how we might be able to help them if they're organized. And that is that I'm not sure if there is a homeowners association associated with Timberlake. Is there? Okay. So in some of the other neighborhoods where we have, the homeowners association has ended up hiring a contractor to do what they consider to be community beneficial work. So rather than put the burden on those properties that do have their back fence on the sidewalk, a homeowners association may decide to pay for the cost to do it. The city doesn't do that kind of cleaning unless it's on an arterial road. So they do require the property owners to do it. That's something maybe we'll come back and explore with you a little more because all homeowners associations are different. And I'm not sure if that's something you have considered or if you guys even have the means to do that. So Joanne, maybe you might note that down as a follow-up item.
Okay, great. The next one is...
Hang on 1 second. It looks like one of our guests is off mute and might have a follow-up question.
Oh, yes, that's from Fred. So it looks like the HOA doesn't have assessments to homeowners. So it's more of, it sounds like a... I've just unmuted you, Fred. I'm sorry. You're now... We can now hear you.
Oh, I think he's still muted, Autumn.
Huh. We can't seem to hear you. You've been unmuted. Well, thank you for that. Oh, and then there's another one from Weber. Our HOA expired several years ago. So it sounds like, I know that as we've spread the word about this meeting, we worked with block watch captains. So it sounds like it's more of just everyone that knows each other is kind of the HOA versus a more formalized one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think, Autumn, what might be helpful is that I think many neighborhoods, there's different levels of HOA commitment and whether or not you pay a fee or whether or not they get together for social events or they do some community neighborhood cleanup. And so I'm not sure, it sounds like from the notes that I'm seeing that this was an HOA, but it's expired several years ago. And so I'm not really sure what a next step might be, but maybe even just having a community meeting to talk about what needs to be done and what tools the HOA could use to do it. I'm not sure. So if we need to have a follow-up with that, we'll do that.
That sounds good. All right, the next question is, the street lights on 182nd entering Timberlake Lane are burned out. Can the city maintain them?
Okay, so I'm glad that we were able to get the questions ahead of time because it allows me to check in with our Public Works operations crew. And so our street team is aware of these street lights. The notes that I got back from them that after the construction of the Sammamish Crown condominiums, it looks like some of these were buried during construction. And our street crews have been unsuccessful in getting these lights restored. It's believed that the service of these lights come off the private property itself, and neither Puget Sound Energy or the city has records of these lights. Couple of steps that they recommended is that they would reach out to Sammamish Crown condominiums and see if there's any way to get additional history on the lights. And we also, in our engineering department, have criteria for lighting standards at intersections, and they would be able to evaluate whether or not this would be a location that could have a new street light. In terms of follow-up for this, Autumn, Joanne and I had talked about trying to get a contact in the neighborhood, contact information, and entering these in our report of concern system, so we create electronic trace for the request and for the follow-up. So I'm not sure who the question came from, but if we have a community representative that would like to say, there we go, then we can enter that in their name so that there can be an electronic way of tracing the response.
Right, and a follow-up. That sounds good.
Yep.
Great. The next one is someone has been creating new unauthorized trails and bicycle paths that are destroying natural vegetation and park property at Timberlake Park. What is the city doing to remedy this?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. This is actually really tough because we have this in several places in town. We have posted no biking allowed signs on the forested trails in the park. That doesn't mean we don't have park monitors. We don't have staff that actually move through the park during different times of the day to see if, folks are behaving in accordance with the rules or not. However, if there are neighbors, I've been on those trails myself. If there are neighborhood users of the trails that see anything that they believe is not in compliance with the rules, the best way to help us is to take a picture and send it in through an email or through our report of concern so that we have a location and we can go and check it out and see whether or not it can be removed. But we really need neighborhood help on this because we don't have on our own staff anybody that is actually a park monitor. So we need your help on that. And the best way to do it is to take a picture and do report of concern. And again, when we do it through report of concern, we're able to track it for you electronically. So that's good.
Great.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you. This is Paul Weber, and I'm here with my wife, Tina. Sorry we couldn't get the audio to work earlier.
Thanks for being here.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Tina.
So I'm going to jump back a couple of questions just to provide a little more background for the benefit of the group. That sidewalk that was referred to that is on our entry road, and there's no houses on that road, that sidewalk was created when those condominiums, I think you referred to them as Sammamish something on it.
Sammamish Crown.
Yeah, that was created when the Sammamish condominiums were created, and the obligation was supposed to be, obviously hasn't been, but it was supposed to be that property was to maintain that short hillside and sidewalk that was created by that development, as well as that's why those two street lights and on that same stretch of road are connected to the condominiums. All that was generated when they developed those condominiums, and that goes back 25 years or so, and clearly whatever obligation they were supposed to carry, they haven't done. So I don't know if that helps, but
it does help. That long ago, it was likely built under King County. I don't believe at that time these neighborhoods were a part of either Bellevue or Issaquah. That's one way it makes. Yeah, that's one way it makes it harder to find documents, especially if they weren't recorded against a deed. Also, it gives us another place to look as well. So I think it's important to hear that information and know that it was actually constructed with that. So we can do some more homework with that and find out. And if there is like a registered obligation against Sammamish Crown Hill Apartments, then we do have something to enforce because we can point to something that says the obligation for cleaning this up and maintaining the sidewalk is with them. So that's actually very helpful information. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and I'd be curious if you do find something. It seems that we do have some old records, some old papers of back in the homeowner association days that talked about the development of that condominium and an attempt to put a 7-Eleven in and a few other interesting things over the years. And I recall seeing verbiage in the paperwork that legally appeared to legally anyway obligate them to not only maintain the street lights but maintain the sidewalk as a condition of developing that property.
Interesting. So question for you, do the concerns that were raised in the original question also affect the children from Sammamish Crown? Are they at the same bus stop, walking on the same sidewalk?
No, they're not. The Sammamish Crown condos front on Westlake Sammamish Parkway and the back of them back into our entry road.
Okay, so it's not even something that maintaining for their own residents would be obvious because they're not actually using it.
No, as a matter of fact, they probably largely don't even know it's there. I'm sure that's why it's been kind of abandoned over the years, is it's not anything the residents are aware of, and I imagine whoever owns that, it doesn't really care, so.
Interesting. Well, we have code enforcement, and if there is a record of something that is attached to the deed or construction documents that says that they're required to maintain it, that gives us a foothold. If there isn't, it doesn't. But it's something worth exploring.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you. Did you want to talk about the other question as well, the trails in the park?
I guess my only comment on that is my wife and I take our dogs for walks in the parks around here, and there are a lot of trails through the forest areas, and I personally, I know a lot of people don't agree, but I personally was glad to see the kids using them. I'm glad to see the kids, even if they bring their bikes in. I was glad to see them getting out and getting some exercise and getting a little bit dirty out there. But they don't do much of that anymore. So personally, I don't want to come down on the kids too hard for bringing their bikes to the parks and riding on some of the trails, even some of the lesser traveled trails, which I think might have been what some people complained about. So
yeah. Interesting. My children are 30 and 33, and I was that mom when we went to a cabin or we went camping that we didn't bring any toys, sticks and stones, and those are toys. Just go outside and play. Make a fort, do something. So I agree with you, but I'm also sensitive to, those who walk through and are disappointed if a trail's been trampled, and it's hard. Does the community do a summer event, a social event, anything like that? Even though it's not an organized HOA anymore, is there a event that, some of these things could just be talked out with everybody? Because I agree with you. I like to see the kids there, but I also don't like to see them, widening a trail twice as wide as it used to be. So
we usually have a couple community events, and now I think there's a third one. A barbecue has been added in the summer, but we usually have an ice cream social every year.
That's what I mentioned. Yeah.
You attend
that.
Great. And yeah, we get quite a few people there.
Oh, that's great. Because maybe it's an ice cream social with a couple of moments of more serious conversation too. But if what we have had in other places is people who have dragged things in to make a fort or to make a jump that actually makes it hard to use the trail, and we don't want that. We want those trails clear, and we want everybody that wants to use them to be able to use them.
Yeah, and I agree completely. And from what we've seen walking the dogs around, there's all I see is some tire tracks, and maybe a few creative places where the kids had the nerve to put a jump in or something that was all natural, jumped over a log or whatever. I haven't seen any material brought in or any forts built.
Oh, that's good.
That's good. So I don't know. I realize you have to balance the protection of the park and so forth. I'm glad to see the kids getting out and getting some exercise, getting dirty out there. So
getting dirty. I love that. I think that's great too. Autumn, do we have any more early submitted questions, or are we just sort of in open form now?
We're in open form, so if anyone else has questions, this is the time.
And I see Fred's typing a message. Oh, Fred, really? You're not going to make me do that, are you? Okay, here we go. If you're reading the newspaper, you're going to see that cities are in different places about events, parades, and summer classes. So the City of Issaquah approach is that every week there seems to be another, I mean, it's been nonstop change. First, you couldn't do everything, and then each week you can do a thing or two again. And so a bunch of protocols are being written up about how to provide services, how to shop, how to do that. One of them, at some point in time, will come about outdoor activities with large crowds. So I'm expecting we'll see something that has to do with concerts, salmon days, any other events. And the guidance will come from the state and from King County Health. And in limited ways, we will be able to do some of the things we used to do. So here's an example. There are a couple of cities that have opened farmers markets. And Issaquah is going to open its farmers market. We're not going to do it in May. We're not quite ready for it. But we are going to do it in June, and it's going to look and feel different. It's going to follow the county guidance, which says that the stalls have to be 6 to 10 feet apart. You have to control entrance, and you have to control exit so that you have no more than a certain amount of people in it. People walk through one way, around a corner, and out the other way. It's going to be fresh food, vegetables, baked goods. So it's going to be about a third of the size of what it used to be. So it's 35 or 38 booths, I think. Salmon Days is just another step up in terms of magnitude. You know, it brings in 100,000 on a sunny day, 100,000 people a day into very small spaces. I don't know what the rules might look like for that. We have told everybody who's planning events that we should be patient and not cancel yet. We should get the guidance that comes out from King County Health and the state, look at our event and see if there's a way we can hold our event still. It might look and feel different, but can we do it? So Salmon Days is quite far away, and I'm not sure how far along the governor's phased reopening plan will be by the time Salmon Days comes along. But if we're at a place where there is a way that it can be held, it might look and feel different, people might be wearing masks, I don't know, then we're going to give the go-ahead to the teams that are organizing it. Salmon Days is actually run by the Chamber of Commerce. So the city participates, but the lead group on that is the Chamber of Commerce. At this time, we have more unknowns than we have knowns. So, and every day it seems like the list of unknowns gets longer and the list of knowns is just kind of creeping along. But we're trying to be responsive. So we are not at this point canceling things. We are waiting to see what the new rules are and then what we can do with those new rules. But that is like quintessential Issaquah, so that one's tough. That's tough.
So Mayor Pauly, let me ask you this. I want to see what your thoughts are on if our neighborhood, we were kind of thinking of having a food truck come.
Yeah. Yep.
Just what are your thoughts within the next couple of weeks? Maybe we would abide by a lot of the physical distancing rules and ask people to wear a mask unless they're eating. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've actually already had this conversation. Gosh, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before. Communities are dying to find ways to reconnect that are not putting anybody's health at risk. We're social beings. We like each other. We want to be together. Food trucks, if they want to park on a city street, they have to get a street use permit, and that's not cheap. If a community wants to invite a food truck in and park it on your own property, that's fine. So if somebody wants to have them pull up in their driveway, you want to paint something on the ground that, every mark is 6 feet apart. And when you're standing in line to get your food, please make sure you're 6 feet apart. Out on the road, if we're going to set up little tables, please make sure it's only your family at your table. And, let's follow everything with the hand sanitizers and masks that we should. I don't think it's problematic to do that. I think we're there. And Autumn, I'm trying to remember, were you in on the food truck meeting?
Yes.
Am I missing anything? The food truck would have to have an Issaquah B&O license, which is not a significant hurdle.
Yes.
And that's about it, correct?
Yes, and we can follow up as far as what they need to do. If you guys are planning one, you can always reach out to me and I can connect you with folks from our permit center.
So is that something you've ever done before?
We haven't done that before, no, but I did hear my friend in Miramont said they had a food truck come, and I thought that would be a great idea for our neighborhood.
So to me, it's the new way we're going to be. You know, we're going to have to try and come up with new ways to socialize, and the food truck seems to be the top of the list. Now, as mayor of a town that has a few food trucks, I would love you to use one for a business in town. But, you know, there's a long list of different food trucks out there with different menus. So I think it sounds great, and Autumn can definitely help you with that if you need to figure out the ins and outs of how to do it. Should be fun.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I think that we would plan to use the Issaquah food truck. I mean,
yay! That's great. Actually, Autumn, we should have that list on hand. The only one I know of off the top of my head is Gemini Fish, but we should have that on hand.
I actually have that list because we've used food trucks for so many different city events, so I can help with even selecting one. Yeah.
Fabulous. I gotta tell you, as mayor, anything we can do for our small businesses, we gotta do it. We gotta do it. So that is great.
Thank you. Thanks.
I am not seeing any other questions, and if it's all right with the group, my council meeting is still going to go on for another hour and 22 minutes. So I should go back and rejoin it. Autumn and my team is going to stay on a little bit longer to see if there's anything to wrap up. But I wanted to thank you very much for test driving this with us. Super fun. Strange times, and if this works for all the neighborhoods, I would love to be able to connect with everybody this spring just to check in and see how everybody's doing. So thank you all for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming and talking to us.
Oh, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, team. See you later.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to go back to the council meeting.
Good
awesome.
luck.
Oh, yeah. Thanks all.
Great. And so before we say goodbye tonight, we had one last question for those that are still with us on how you connect with the city and what communication tools you use to get your city news. So would love any feedback on that. If you subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on social media, or do you watch council meetings? How do you best connect with the city?
Right. Autumn, I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Sure. Yeah, I was just wondering how folks connect with the city or how you get your city news. When we're just selfishly asking as the communications team how folks connect with the city and whether you receive our newsletter or subscribe to our updates on our website or watch city council meetings, just how you stay informed.
Let's see. Well, I sometimes watch Channel 21.
Oh, great.
I watch some council meetings and just to see what's going on, and we get the newsletter in the mail. Yes.
Perfect. Well, we have, just speaking of the city's communication tools, we have a way you can subscribe to just simply neighborhood news, so news that affects your neighborhood via our website. And I can send out a recap of this meeting along with some URLs where you can subscribe to news, whether it's our weekly newsletter or just neighborhood news. We're also extremely active on Twitter as well as Facebook and Instagram. And I also wanted to mention that if you have any concerns in your neighborhood that you want to report to the city, if you go to our website, there's a button on our homepage called Report a Concern. And you can submit requests there, and we'll make sure to keep you informed as we work on your request. If it's something more urgent, where it's, there's might be urgent property issues, nothing that's an emergency, but seems urgent enough that we need to know about it after hours, you can also call our police's non-emergency line, at 425-837-3200, and that's answered 24/7. So if you ever have any really urgent concerns, there's someone that will always answer your call. And I see there was, oh great, thank you, Thomas, for adding that link there. And thanks for your notes too. So, and with that, I think that we're done for the evening unless you guys have any other questions. And I thank you so much again for joining us on this first test run with Neighborhood Calls. It was great to see. So thank you.
Can I just ask you something on
Sure.
how many, because I can't see, I'm on my phone, so how many people are on this call?
Yeah, I was counting. Some people dropped off and on throughout, and we've been testing different platforms. I think we may go with a different platform next time, but we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10.
Because I have some neighbors who told me that they were going to go on, and I'm thinking they might have had technical difficulties.
Okay.
Because we did also, we tried to get on with Firefox, and it just wasn't working. We could only get on with Explorer or Edge.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. Also, I think I find that Zoom is a lot easier. I do a lot of work with elderly people who mentor in the Issaquah School District, and they seem to find it easy to get onto Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, our IT team has been working on testing many different options and some that are more user-friendly than Skype for Business. So this may be our only Skype for Business call. So I apologize if there were any technical issues. We were thinking about switching, but didn't want to send out another email to you guys. So thank you for that feedback. We definitely know there could be some barriers with this tool. And we've recorded this meeting, so I will also make sure to email this link out to everybody so they can also watch if they weren't able to join tonight.
Thank you for organizing this, Autumn.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, you guys. And have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.